Hello and welcome to the Bundesliga Show, the Monday evening edition of the review show for week 30 of the Bundesliga season. Who can believe it? We've got 30 weeks already gone behind us, only 4 more weeks to go, and we've got everything to play for as the Bundesliga season comes to a close. And as you can see today, I'm joined once again by Peter. How are you doing over there?
Well, I am. It's Monday Night Live back with Mark. How do you think I'm doing? I'm doing absolutely fantastic. And furthermore, what a weekend this was on the world's best footballing beat. Good God, this was epic. There are great talking points and fabulous storylines from every match. I must note that, unfortunately, because of the holiday, the newspapers didn't come in the Bundesrepublik today. But I did save the Bild am Sonntag for you for a little bit of kiosk. Of course, much to my chagrin, the Bild is leading with Bayern's big win over Heidenheim. They've hallat sich den Eurofrust weg. They've shaken off the Champions League blues, if you will. And of course, this was the weekend in which they effectively clinched the title. And Leverkusen, Patrick Schick, and Xabi Alonso have conceded the title. However, if one opens up the fold here a little bit, this is the match that I'm sure you want to get started talking about. Good Lord! A Bundesliga record at the Stadion an der Alte Försterei. 8 goals in one halftime in the opening 45. That has never happened in Bundesliga history before. Mark, please tell me you saw that match on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a crazy one, wasn't it? I couldn't believe what I was seeing, to be honest with you. I just got back from the stadium at Nuremberg Paderborn as well, and I turned it on, and I couldn't believe it, really. I mean, obviously, Stuttgart flew out of the blocks, didn't they, as well? Like, they absolutely flew out of the blocks, with Illich and later giving themselves a 2-0 lead after just inside 20 minutes, didn't they? But then the usual Great Wall of Berlin, the Berlin Wall of Union, wasn't able to kind of show up for the rest of that half. And incredibly, they shipped 4 goals for the remainder of the half. One really nice strike through Undav and Mio as well. Let's be honest, they were really nice strikes. But then the strike of the game, I mean, from the guy that you were talking up, Peter, as well, Leopold Querfeld, a man I think we're going to be hearing a lot more from in the coming years in the Bundesliga. Smashed in an absolute beauty from all of 40 meters out, I think, didn't he? Top corner, rocket, boom. There you go for 3-2. But within 6 minutes of that, incredibly, Union were behind, weren't they? Jeff Szabo kind of bundled in one for 3-3, and then a pretty good goal as well, really, from Chris Furyk, who found space to fire home for the 4-3, and was still only on 46 minutes at that point. And then, just as if things couldn't get any better, I mean, it was 4-4, wasn't it? Illich scrappily kind of bundled in pretty much all of Union's goals in this game, apart from the Leopold Querfeld, were bundled in, to be fair. But this was another one bundled in from the improving Andre Illich, the striker there for Union. It was 8 goals in the first half, as you say, for the first time ever, the record, the highest scoring first half ever. Peter, I mean, what can you make of this one? Was it just carnage, or do you think both teams played well in this one?
Well, I mean, I have so much to say about this game because as you and I were discussing this game, we did tip a draw, but I think we tipped a 1-1 draw. No one expected this. There was actually no one in the Union Stadium who expected this. I've never seen something like this from Union Berlin before, as a matter of fact. And I thought I was watching a handball match for a second there. I mean, this was just insane. This was a bloody summer kickabout. As this was unfolding, I turned on the tactical cam there on Sky to try and make some sense of what the hell was going on. And I couldn't, because every time I put pen to paper and tried to understand what these two teams were doing tactically, somebody else scored. Well, I want to mention that what made this match so fantastic on so many levels, and if people haven't checked out the highlights yet, you have to check these highlights out. This is incredible. This match had everything that a football lover really wants, and particularly German football lovers, but football lovers across the globe. It's easy to forget that we actually had 4 set-piece goals in the opening half because we had 8 goals. And one forgets that because of these incredible distance efforts. You mentioned Leopold Querfeld. It was actually 34 meters out, but that's no less impressive. Querfeld's distance strike came shortly after Enzo Mio gave us what we thought was the goal of the season candidate. And Querfeld said, I'm going to one-up that. Screw that. Incidentally, if they want to learn a little bit of German, Querfeld kind of, you could translate that as cross-field. It was very, very fitting that a man with the name Crossfield scores 34 meters out. I do want to talk about every goal briefly because every goal had a story. The first one, our first set-piece goal in the 5th minute, that was Ilic who scored that goal. And let's not forget that Andre Ilic, the Lille loanee, that's a very, very interesting story because he got, I believe it was 0 minutes under Bo Svensson. But it was Baumgart who breathed new life into him. And of course, Doeki, who has been linked with a move away from the club, grabbed the assist on that. It was Leite, who's also been linked with a move away from the club, who scored the second goal in the 19th minute. Incredible piece of, it was another set piece goal, incredible piece of setup work there by Querfeld, again, who grabbed the assist. So we have Union Berlin up 2-0 in the 90th minute. Already journalists are writing their stories about this match. 4 minutes later, Dennis Undav comes back from the dead. Let's not forget that he has been struggling this season, along with fellow former German internationals, other German internationals, Chris Führich and Maximilian Mittelstädt. It's Mittelstädt who sets up Undav's goal. It's an absolute beauty. It's Undav's first goal since, I think, January 18th, earlier this year. Undav's been taking a lot of heat in the German press. Sebastian Hoeneß has been talking about his dip in form. And he didn't really even celebrate Undav. He was just like, okay, I got the job done. We have Mio's goal in the 29th. That's 6 minutes after Undav scores. Stuttgart have the equalizer. As I said earlier, Mio, that was a contender for the goal of the season, but then Querfeld one-ups him. Once again, it's Leite on the assist, so he gets his name on the score sheet again. Then we have Jeff Chabot scoring another set-piece goal. It's ridiculous. Chabot only scored his first Bundesliga goal just a little earlier this season. When was it? It was, this part I forgot. But the former Köln man, who is, I mean, his story is a great story in its own right because he's a German. He came up through the Serie A and all of this stuff. He scored his first Bundesliga goal ever. It was against Dortmund on Matchday 21. He scored 2 weeks ago against Bochum. Now he has 3 Bundesliga goals. I mean, the storylines, there were too many storylines here. All right, so we're not finished yet, of course. In injury time, there are 2 more goals. Undav sets up Führich at 45+1 for the 4-3. And then another set-piece goal. Ilic grabs the double puck, the brace, with Christopher Trimmel, the captain, the 38-year-old captain who just signed an extension with Union Berlin this week. This was insane. I mean, I felt so sorry for the minute-by-minute writers and those journalists who were trying to write a story about this. Thankfully, in the second half, Union went back to Union football. We got a distance effort from Benedikt Hollebach, who was thinking, why not at this point? I might as well have a go myself. But then after that, it settled down, and it became more of a typical Union game at the Stadion an der Alte Försterei. Tight tactics, compact 3-3-2-2 from Stefan Baumgart's side. A little bit of shithousery there in midfield. And the game settled down. So thankfully, everybody got a chance to write their story about this game. But wow, it just had everything. You know how I love those analog scoreboards, Mark? You know how I love how...
Yeah. Like in 1860 it was, wasn't it? I remember when we were there, yeah.
We were there, and also most recently Bayreuth also had an analog scoreboard. No, they had a digital one. Excuse me, I'm thinking of something else. But yeah, 1860, of course, the analog score. The guy had to put the numbers out there 8 times in 45 minutes. That's incredible. Wow. And we are far from finished. There were so many other good games, so many other incredible games in the Bundesliga this weekend. We've just covered one of the 9. I don't know what you want to cover next, Mark. I mean, I suppose, we could talk. Probably my vote would be Freiburg Hoffenheim. You want to segue us into that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, if Cam was on the show, I wanted to kind of lead him into this one, but obviously he wasn't able to join us tonight. But yeah, I mean, what a game it was as well. This was another fantastic game. I mean, we kind of build this one on Thursday night as the, hero versus evil, really, in some ways, didn't we? And as it always does in a Hollywood movie, the hero came out on top in the end. But it was definitely a kind of, it was a tussle, to say the least, wasn't it? And it was a really entertaining game. Got to say as well, I mean, some of the football that Freiburg played in this game was really impressive as well. I mean, we've talked about Freiburg being a kind of attrition side a lot this season, very, very strong from set plays. But I feel as though in this game, they really came alive as a footballing team, and building on that excellent display against Gladbach last week. This was another strong performance. And a lot of that was due to the new man on the block, the new kid, Manzambi. I felt as though he was excellent again. And he is yet another player that Freiburg seem to have unearthed as well in that squad, which is fantastic to see. But yeah, Höhler played brilliantly as a kind of leading number 9. Obviously, Manzambi played off him, and then Grifo and Doan were super industrious as well as wingers. I thought it was a great attacking performance from the SCF in this game. Some of the goals were really good. That first goal as well, some of the play between Doan, Manzambi and Höhler was excellent as well. And Manzambi could be the man that kind of provides that kind of X factor for this Freiburg side and kind of links it all together, because he certainly made a very, very good start in the starting 11 for the team, hasn't he? But obviously, Hoffenheim also played their part as well in the game. I mean, they were actually 2-0 down going into the stoppage time as well, but somehow managed to find themselves level on the brink of half time. It was initially a kind of scrappy goal, really, from Bulter, wasn't it? It was initially blocked, came back to him nicely, and he kind of slashed it home into the back of the net on the line. But again, another play that didn't really celebrate the goal very much, did he? I mean, for me, this could be a sign that there is still a lot of unhappiness at the TSG at the minute. A lot of players not happy, just not enjoying the football. I'm talking of men not really enjoying his football at the minute, despite the form he's been on. Kramaric was able to level up on the stroke of half time. And I mean, one of the players has been one of the players of the Ruck Runde, really, but pretty much every game he comes out and criticizes the team, criticizes the club. So it's a very odd club there at the minute. It really is. And obviously in the second half, it was another good goal from Höhler, another great team move involving Doan, Grifo and Höhler, which ended up giving them the 3-2 victory, and probably just about deserved in the end for the superior football they were able to play in the game. Peter, what was your thoughts on this? And are you just as excited about Manzambi as me?
Yes, I, like most German footballing journalists here in the Bundesrepublik, I am in the grips of Johann Manzambi fever. I wrote 2 stories on him in the last week. One, of course, was the fact that he that game-winning goal, that dramatic late winner that he scored against Bochum last week, and then Julian Schuster's decision to put him in the starting lineup. Now, I was amazed at this young man's performance tactically. He is 19 years old. He is a Swiss U20 international. He's never even represented Switzerland at the U21 level. And he's actually not a homegrown Freiburg player. I think they signed him from Servette maybe January 2023. So I want to know everything about this young man. And the reason that I want to know everything about this young man is that the performance he put in was epic. Those runs, the dribble, initially when he hit the post early before the opening goal was scored, was incredible. The back heel on the opening goal itself was so super slick. He wasn't just a 10. Occasionally he was rotating in with Höhler at the 9. He was winning balls deep in his own defensive third. He was triggering the press incredibly, very, very cleverly, just covering so much ground. I mean, an amazing heat map he wrapped up there in both pressing and build-up play. And I mean, his game intelligence was just phenomenal. I can't believe he was only 19 years old. I mean, courageous in the duels, everything. I was getting real Jude Bellingham vibes off of him watching this, because I thought to myself, this is a true box-to-box player. Yeah. And, I just can't wait to see more of him. I absolutely cannot wait to see more of him. And Höhle, as you mentioned, as a matter of fact, I was reading the Kicker online today, since the print copy didn't come. And Timo Müller compared him, I thought you might appreciate this, to an ice hockey forward, because he was so physical. He was doing some great body checks and everything like that. I mean, Höhle has always been one of my favorite players. He's a player that I've given a lot of attention to. I don't think he's necessarily gotten the credit that he's deserved. When we went to see Freiburg, he played an excellent game. We have some great...
He did,
on tape. This was a big year for him. He also cut off his ponytail, his man bun this year. So that's quite significant. Wow. I mean, it really did deliver. This we were talking about on Thursday. It's not really a Badische derby, but it's a game that Germans, of course, like to watch, because Freiburg enjoys a lot of sympathy, and Hoffenheim are one of the most hated clubs there. Hoffenheim did play a good match. Kramaric was excellent. Marius Bülter set up both Hoffenheim goals with some excellent moves. Is there something that I should say? I'm gonna talk about this story a little bit about Hoffenheim. Did you hear about the Roger Wittmann story this week?
No, not yet.
I wanted to bring this up. Let me again state unequivocally that was a command performance from Freiburg. I'm really, really excited to have them in Europe. Julian Schuster has done a fantastic job with that club. I actually even remember there was a Freiburg-Hoffenheim match back in 2011 in which Julian Schuster scored the opening goal as a Freiburg player. So I'm very excited about Freiburg. I'm incredibly excited about Monzambi. There's a story that I wanted to talk about briefly with Hoffenheim. You and I have been talking about the administrative chaos at Hoffenheim since the beginning of the season. And something that I've repeatedly stated on this pod is that what we see in Hoffenheim now, there's a lot of fishiness going on with the hand of Dietmar Hopp still within this club. It doesn't look like he's kept his word. He hasn't stepped back after promising to give this club back over to 50+1. And there's been a fan protest movement over this player agent that is very, very close with Hopp. And this week, the news broke on Friday. It was fairly big news that the club management at Hoffenheim is trying to distance himself from this Roger Wittmann guy. Now, if you don't know who Roger Wittmann is, he's an agent who works for Rogan Sports Management, and it is he who is responsible for a lot of these bad Hoffenheim signings. To name a few, Kasim Adams, our boy Attila Szalai, this Hungarian flop, Stanley Unsoki, who was once again terrible in this match. And there's some evidence that Wittmann and Hopp are still not only trying to influence the club management, but they're also influencing personnel decisions within the team. The example of Diadi Samaseku's return has been brought up. Where did his return come from? He's represented by Wittmann. So people, Wittmann was never a Pellegrino Matarazzo fan. As a matter of fact, when they wanted to sack what was the name of the guy, the former Hannover guy that they had in 2023, Andre Breitenreiter. Wittmann wanted them to bring in Kenan Kocak, but they brought in Matarazzo instead. And when Matarazzo was about to get sacked after a poor start with Hoffenheim, Wittmann was pushing to have Matarazzo sacked and install Kocak. What happened this week is that under pressure from the fans, there's been some protests from the Hoffenheim fans. let's give them some credit. They are politically savvy. They do care about their club. They have Hoffenheim have issued a public statement saying that they're no longer going to have close collaboration with this agent who's a friend of Hopp's. Fairly big news on the Hoffenheim front. Also, considering the fact that we think that Wittmann may have had a hand in sacking Matarazzo earlier this season, installing this awful Christian Ilzer trainer. So that's an interesting story to keep an eye on from a German footballing perspective. And I thank you for allowing me to share it on the pod. I know that it's kind of insider stuff, but it's something that I wanted to share because it's something that's relevant to German football, and it goes through a thread that we've been talking about all season. With that in mind, I think it's probably time we get to our third match, which is going to be, I would imagine that we should talk about Dortmund-Gladbach, no?
Yeah, definitely. We've also had a few comments in as well about that, which is quite nice as well, from BVB Sports, who I guess is a BVB fan, predicting Hoffenheim 1, Borussia Dortmund 3. Also, already some tips in for the next week as well. Since Kovac changed it back to a back three formation and playing well with it, yeah, definitely. The back three is definitely working for Kovac and his boys. Also, a question from DM: will Kovac be at Dortmund next season? Oh, Peter, what do you think?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself there. That is a good question, and I think that I might answer in the affirmative because Dortmund are very much in the ascendancy here. We're going to get into further detail about the performance against Gladbach, but they've had back-to-back convincing wins in their home stadium in which they fed off the energy of the crowd. And, Kovac has a chance. We've been talking about this in the last two pods, like Edin Terzic did in the 2020-21 season, to actually pull this team up the table and maybe even get them in Champions League contention the table based on their remaining schedule and the strength that they have now. So the back three actually is quite important in this respect. The back three has stabilized matters quite a bit. Dortmund now, dating back to, let's see, they beat Mainz, they beat Freiburg, they drew Bayern München, and now this victory gives them a 4-match unbeaten run in the league. That performance against Barcelona on Wednesday or Tuesday, begging your pardon, was very much not irrelevant. That was a command performance by several key actors, and Mark and I talked a little bit about that on the prediction show, particularly the play of Maximilian Bayer and Pascal Gross and the lead striker Serhou Guirassy as well. I think that Kovac he'll be in there because there's what alternative? Mark, do you have any idea, of an alternative? Have you even heard of any whispers or rumors? Because scouring the German press, I haven't. I think they want to stick with him through the Club World Cup, and who else could they possibly install? Dortmund have their own, too many bosses problem in the front office.
Yeah, I think there were a few talks of Glasner at one point, weren't there? I think Glasner was mentioned. But again, it's whether they really want to do that, because Kovac has steadied the ship. He really has. And it does make you wonder, should they have had him from the start of the season and not Nuri Sahin? They'd probably be comfortable top 4 right now, to be honest. And, Kovac has had his criticisms on this show before, but at the end of the day, he has won stuff, hasn't he? Obviously, that cup with Frankfurt quite a few years ago now, to be fair. And then obviously also won the Bundesliga with Bayern, but let's be honest, who hasn't won the Bundesliga with Bayern? But still, he does have silverware in the pocket, and he is a guy that you can imagine, what I've seen so far, that he could take them a little bit further. I think Glasner is the only one that really stands out, because Dortmund are one of those clubs that are very, very strict on having a German-speaking coach, aren't they? Like, that's like an absolute must for them. They wouldn't go for anyone from the Premiership and maybe one of the smaller English clubs, who they could maybe lure there, because of the lack of German skills and things. So I think potentially Glasner is the only one. Maybe Daniel Fark, but obviously he just got Leeds promoted today, but I doubt it, to be honest. I've not heard any murmurs about him. Obviously, he's had a good season at Leeds, getting them promoted, but realistically, I think it's going to be Kovac. And I think he deserves a second season, to be honest, from what I've seen so far. You know, he's got the best out of Guirassy, that's for sure, because he wasn't really doing that well before, Kovac went in. Let's be honest, nobody could really have done much worse than Nuri Sahin, in truth. And, I mean, he got way too much credit for doing a truly shocking job, to be honest, Sahin. I mean, he was shocking during his 7 months at the club. And I think Kovac is probably... It couldn't get much worse, could it? And he has steadied the ship. You know, he got them a few good wins in the... in the Champions League against Lille, Sporting Lisbon, and then obviously a good second leg win against Barca, where they outplayed what is considered to be the favourites for the Champions League as well. So let's give them credit for that too. As for this game, this was not such a convincing performance, to be honest. I felt as though Gladbach played their part, more than played the part in an entertaining game. I mean, the first goal was the goal of the game, really, wasn't it? Absolutely brilliant play from Itakura, who's another one that's surely going to attract attention from the Premier League in summer. I think he's really looked excellent at times this season, and great play, kind of starting the move and finishing it, slotting away excellently, almost Beckenbauer style, really, that, wasn't it? Great football from him. But then that kind of woke Dortmund up a little bit, didn't it? And they actually got 3 goals in quick-fire time, really, in very, very quick-fire time. And it was 41 minutes, 44 minutes, and then in the added time as well. So that's a way to blow a game for Gladbach, really, isn't it? Let's be honest. But there were some good goals in there as well. I think the nice finish from Guirassy, excellent finish from Nemecha as well, just kind of... finishing an excellent move. And then Daniel Svensson, who's done really well, by the way, since joining in January. He's been one of the kind of bright sparks with a looping header. I'm not quite sure what the keeper was doing. Obviously, the returning Omlin did himself no favours in this game at all, by the way. And if things could ever get worse for the Gladbach failed stopper, then this is probably going to be his last chance saloon, to be honest with you. Not quite sure why he even started ahead of the impressive Cardozo, because he'd done really well for Gladbach too. He was on the bench, so I'm not quite sure why Omlin even started this game, but he was damn awful, put it that way. Then obviously the game, it was still entertaining, and Kevin Stöger tucked away a penalty after a foul on Kleindienst. And then it was more Gladbach really pushing for the leveler, wasn't it, for the last half an hour or so. Weren't able to get that, Peter. And yeah, do you feel as though this was a case of hard luck for Gladbach a little bit, or do you think that that they didn't defend well enough at times in the match? No luck involved for Gladbach. We talked about this on the Thursday pod. Their defeat against Freiburg last weekend was absolutely unacceptable for a team that should be competing in Europe. And indeed, it was Tim Kleindienst who criticized his team's body language. You mentioned the keeper situation. I actually covered 2 Seoane press conferences this weekend. One was the Friday one, and one was the Sunday one. And in both cases, this man does not look confident in himself. He does not look confident in his team. He looks like Florian Kohfeldt when he was in charge of the game. Absolutely. So, we really saw nothing from Gladbach in the second half, apart from that penalty. I don't think they had a scoring chance in the second half. Actually, did you notice that Daniel Schlager, when he was giving his little refereeing soliloquy to explain the decision, he called him Tim Kleinschmidt? Yeah, I did. I saw that. Yeah. I thought, did I mishear that? I was like, I couldn't believe it. Yeah. Maybe he got Tim Kleindienst and Waldschmidt mixed up there a little bit, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is something. It was, of course, as you mentioned, it was not as strong a performance from Dortmund as against Barcelona in the Champions League. As I was quick to point out on Thursday, the back three of Niklas Süle, Waldemar Anton, and Rami Bensebaini three players who have not been performing for this club was exceptional against Barcelona. And to expect that they were going to be as strong, particularly playing out of the back in 2 consecutive matches, is unreasonable. They weren't as calm, Dortmund weren't, in this one as they were in the Champions League. I'm surprised you didn't mention the influence of Chukwuemeka, who came on for the injured Bayern in the 35th minute, and played a role in all 3 of those Dortmund goals that were scored. I don't think. I mean, this is they cannot sign him. What is he going to cost them? 40 million or 50 million?
Minimum.
Yeah. No, they don't have the money to sign him, unfortunately. Which is a shame, because now that he's gotten his fitness together, he's put in some really good performances. As a matter of fact, it was when you and I were in Preston a couple of weeks back that I was covering the Kovac post-match presser, and he, in commending Chukwuemeka, am I saying that name properly? With Mark,
I think none of the English can say it either. It's been like a mystery for about 5-6 years, to be honest. I believe it's Chukwuemeka, but it's
okay. All right.
Kind of tongue-twisting English pundits for years as well over in the UK.
At least I know that it's Tim Kleindienst and not Tim Kleinschmidt.
That's true. We're pretty solid on that one.
Oh yeah. So I was covering the press conference, and he was commending both Chukwuemeka and Gittins, and saying those 2 Englishmen have earned a trip to the pub. And I was thinking to myself, how can this possibly I'd be covering this story while I'm in England? It's just serendipity, I suppose.
We've not heard that one before, have we?
Now, I mean, so back to the point of what kind of team, can they build around Niko Kovac next year? I mean, it's a good team. They're looking at. I mean, Anton has had a poor first season, but I mean, surely he can bounce back. Süle has been bouncing back into good form lately. I mean, obviously they'll get Schlotterbeck back. Ben Sebaini seems to be thriving in a back 3. Maybe they should have put him there all along. Now that Felix Nemecha is back and Pascal Gross is back in midfield, rather than playing as a fullback, that seems to be quite advantageous. Svensson, they're going to sign permanently. I think there's an automatic purchase clause that takes place if they get him in 3 of the next 4 matches, and he only costs like 5 million. Of course, you need players like Gittins and Adeyemi to remain fit. But Bayer's sort of surge and the versatility with which he can play as a lead striker. He can play slanted off on the right there or the left as a buttressing support attacker. So, I mean, yeah, I think they keep Kovac for the time being. Now, whether or not Kovac survives next season, who the hell knows? That's we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves there. But I think they keep him, and I think that they build a core around, and I think they really try to. I mean, the problem with Dortmund is just there's too many goddamn. They call it the Elefantenrunde. There's too many personnel executives in that front office. And what they did this past offseason by just adding more, like, oh, here's Lars Ricken, and we'll go ahead and sign Keo to a contract extension. You know how it is.
Now you know why the English just have a manager, Peter. Yeah, it's a little bit easier in some ways. Yeah.
I mean, in German, football, of course, we don't call the head coach the manager. He's the trainer, and the manager is the front office guy. But you can have multiple managers, and Dortmund always have. I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, they had 3, and they were like, let's add another. But that's what they really have to get in order, and that's always been the damn problem with them. They never seem to get their front office straight. So they can do that. They can build around a core, and then keep Kovac in place, and then who knows? Maybe Kovac gets sacked or gets axed 10 match days into the campaign, just like he did for Bayern back in 2019. That sounds like something that would happen to Kovac, because he's not a bad tactician, but he oftentimes gets, way too complex. I mean, the tactical job that he did with Wolfsburg last season was appalling. And the fact that he's done well here in Dortmund, I think, is that he's been able to well, he's been able to sort of streamline it a little bit better. And to be fair, the injuries have maybe even helped him in that regard. But yeah, I think he stays.
Yeah, and then BVB as well, mentioning that Borussia Dortmund utilised the first half in game managed a second from a 6-pointer match with the European spots. So talking about those kind of European spots, and we've got Dortmund as 7th now. They're probably going to have to get in the top 6 to get any kind of Europe this season, as we've mentioned before, because the cup final is going to be Stuttgart, who aren't going to get top 6, against Bielefeld, who most definitely aren't going to get top 6. So yeah, I think obviously they're in 7th, but they're only a couple of points behind beleaguered Mainz at the minute, who are really struggling, aren't they? They've gone 6 without a win now and are really starting to struggle in the Bundesliga. Obviously Freiburg now into 5th and only a point off 4th as well. And with the form that they've kind of put together in recent weeks, who would put them beyond the top 4 spot? We've got Leipzig, who kind of floundered to a pretty dire 1-1 against Kiel, who managed to keep up their incredible record, by the way, Kiel, which is unbelievable. They're now through 17 games away from home, and they've scored in every one. I mean, even teams like Bayern would be happy with that record. So, I mean, it's a hell of a number. It really is. They've only got 2 more places to go before, which I believe is Augsburg and Dortmund, which are not going to be easy places to score either on current form. But let's see about that. Yeah, then obviously Frankfurt, who kind of also laboured to a 0-0 draw as well, and were quite lucky to escape with a point, in truth, in that game. I felt as though Augsburg had the bigger chances there. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I mean, Philipp Tietz has to score there in the last couple of minutes, doesn't he? He's got all the goal to aim at. It is a great save from Kevin Trapp, but that would potentially give an Augsburg a massive win to keep them in European contention. But I want to turn our attention to the title race now. I mean, it might seem a little bit boring at this stage because, we all know it's kind of more or less over, Peter. We were kind of saying it was more or less over before this weekend, but if there were any doubts, then it most definitely is now. So I actually want to start with Leverkusen because they're a bit of a club in turmoil at the minute, aren't they? Obviously, this time last year, we were talking about them. They already closed in on the title. They had 2 cup finals to come, obviously one of which they won. The other one was probably in some ways you'd say the start of the downfall of the empire, really, wouldn't you? The 3-0 defeat against Atalanta. But Peter, I mean, what's wrong with Leverkusen at the minute? They're just not scoring goals, are they? It seems as though Jabi's going to be on his way out. There's obviously talks that Flo Wirtz is going to be on his way out. What does the future hold for the Bayern 04 at the minute?
Well, as I think everybody's on their way out. Everybody's checked out. We've been talking about this in the last 2 pods. Xhaka is being linked with a move away if Wirtz and Xabi depart, which it looks like will be the case. Ta confirmed that he would be leaving today, which, I mean, that was never in question for me, really. I'm surprised he stayed last season. But they're not... they just don't have the creative spark anymore. Xabi seems completely checked out. You and I tipped that St. Pauli would, I think I tipped a 1-1 draw, and you tipped.
Yeah, you did. You got it. Yeah, I went for the 2-1 win, but we can take it anyway, I guess.
Well, I mean, that was an informed tip from both of us because we see what kind of form Leverkusen are in at the moment. We saw that when Wirtz was introduced last week in the 0-0 draw with Union, he provided a little bit of magic, but he's not 100%. That's a fairly serious ankle injury that he had. Yeah. That could have easily ended his season. I have no idea why they're rushing him back at all. And, St. Pauli very much in the ascendancy. Alexander Blessin has done a wonderful job with his team. They haven't arithmetically secured safety yet, but they're on the march. They had a comeback win against Kiel last weekend. I was covering some Blessin pressers, and he's obviously grinning from ear to ear, of course, because he might end up taking over a lucrative new job with Wolfsburg or Hoffenheim after the season is over with. When he was addressing the Jackson Irvine injury, he didn't even flinch. He just said, "I've got players who can fill that. I've got Robert Wagner. I've got Carlo Buchalfa. I've got options." And it was Buchalfa who slotted in for Irvine, and actually Schmeidt, the guy you could call Eric Smith, but he's Swedish. It's actually pronounced Eric Schmeidt.
I love that.
Yeah. He moved into midfield and kind of like some Scots, they call themselves Smythe or something like this, right? But he moved in.
Smithy, I think Smithy they call it.
Okay.
But there's a lot of variations on the beloved name Smith, Schmeidt, Smith, Schmidt, Smithy. There's just about every single kind of.
Yeah.
And then the Germans have obviously got the Schmidt at the end as well, like Waldschmidt, and you got also the Forest Smith and all kinds of stuff.
But not Kleinschmidt.
Yeah, that's true. Not yet. Anyway, not yet.
Yeah, so I mean, they're completely checked out. Patrick Schick and Xabi effectively conceded the title race. I mean, it all fell apart with them with that cup loss against Bielefeld. They've not been the same team since. Understandably so. If you get eliminated by a third-tier Bundesliga side, the existence of the town of which most Germans question. I don't think any of us would believe that Bielefeld actually existed were it not for Ada Lotte Böhle. She's the only clear evidence that Bielefeld exists. So it completely fell apart for them after that. And, we've been declaring the end of the title race for quite some time, probably since that match. And I mean, it came as no surprise, really, that Bayern took care of business against Heidenheim this weekend. We were hoping that Heidenheim would conform to historical precedent and actually score some goals against Bayern, as they do average more goals against Bayern than any other top flight side. But that's sort of a statistical anomaly since they've only faced Bayern 3 times in the top flight. Yeah, not too much to say about the Bayern match from my perspective. Perhaps you can add something about it. I mean, I thought to me that was the least interesting match of the weekend. I think that it was so one-sided. I mean, there was an interesting interview with Joshua Kimmich afterwards, in which he said he didn't like wearing the captain's armband because it was too big. And it was grating because it's ordinarily Manuel Neuer's armband. And then Jonas Urbig gave sort of an interesting exit interview because, I mean, I think Neuer is coming back next week, and this was his last start. And he finally kept a clean sheet, but he didn't necessarily have to work very hard. I think the only guy who got a shot on target was our boy, Sir Lord Conte. I don't know. Do you have anything to add on Bayern or Leverkusen?
It was a cakewalk, basically, for Bayern. Yeah, I think obviously Vincent Kompany came out and described it as a complete performance, which on one side it was, but I just felt as though Heidenheim showed them too much respect. And at the minute, Heidenheim don't look like a team that are fighting relegation to me. There's a lack of fighting spirit. There's a lack of anything there, really, at the minute from them. And my God, was this an easy win. I mean, our boy Harry obviously got the opening goal, didn't he? And then Lima, the game was dead inside 20 minutes, basically, here. And the rest of it was a beautiful afternoon down in South Bavaria as well for this game. And, well, I should say Bavarian, well, it's more like Schwabia, isn't it, Heidenheim? Yeah. So it was an extremely easy win for them. For Heidenheim, to be honest, I wanted to get onto the bottom 3. I mean, are the bottom 3 really fighting hard enough this season? Because, I mean, normally by this point, we've already seen a kind of improvement from those bottom sides, haven't we, in most cases? But this year, okay, Kiel in dribs and drabs, but still, they're not exactly getting many wins. Heidenheim were just awful in this performance, really. They really were. And it was almost like they just said, he rolled out the red carpet and just said, walk along it, Bayern Munich, basically, because they won't get an easier win all season than that. And I feel as though, Heidenheim's still in 16th at the minute on 22 points, which normally you'd be relegated on that by now, basically, because normally you obviously need 34, 35 points just to stay up. The playoff can be like 32, 33 sometimes, but I mean, to still be in with a chance of staying up on 22 points at this stage is lucky, basically, let's be honest. But they do still have a chance, but they're just not playing well enough to really take it by the look of it. Then obviously we got Bochum, who did play a little bit better and were maybe a bit unlucky to lose at Bremen, but were still ultimately beaten by a late strike by Bremen there. They're still on 20 points. And let's not forget, they got that Gruden Tisch as well, which was kind of extremely fortunate. They'd be 2 points even worse off than that if it wasn't for the Gruden Tisch, So I hope they get out the green tables and worship them in Bochum, because it was a pretty dreadful performance again from them. Kiel is a little bit better. We already mentioned they obviously continued that brilliant record. Shuto Machino with a really nice finish as well. Oh boy, will we miss him if they get relegated this year. But you never know, he might have done enough to get another club, because they have been impressive at times. He has been impressive at times. Peter, just focusing on that bottom three. I mean, if you had to pick, first of all, is it over? Is it over for the bottom three? Are they all going to... Is there any chance that they could catch up Hoffenheim or Pauli? It is still mathematically possible. Obviously, Union were the latest side to mathematically confirm safety this season as well. But there are still effectively 5 still in the race. But the second question is, which of these 3 teams is looking in the best shape to make the playoff at the minute, do you think?
Yes, I have an answer to that question. First of all, I do want to talk a little bit about Kiel's 1-1 draw with Leipzig. It was a good performance by Marcel Rapp's Störche, the Storks. The sprinting Storks, they've actually made more sprints than any other Bundesliga side in the league. The last place team has. Go figure that. So Rapp was energetic, and he was really, he actually proudly stated at the press conference that, his team had what it takes to avoid relegation, the last place team. After all, they are only 3 points off of that playoff spot. Now, the reason that this is not going to happen is because I've gone ahead and looked up the remaining fixture list. Kiel faced Gladbach. Okay, not doing so hot. Augsburg, I agree with you, a very impressive performance from them this weekend. Freiburg, one of the hottest teams in the Bundesliga, and Dortmund, whom we've given a lot of respect to. That's their 4 remaining fixtures. Heidenheim have Stuttgart, Bochum, Union Berlin, and Werder Bremen. Fairly easy schedule. They can get some points. Bochum have Union Berlin, Heidenheim, Mainz, and St. Pauli. A lot of mixtures in there. So I'm actually thinking that the bottom 3 stay where they are. That's my specific prediction. Based on that. Of course, nothing is over until you get 35 points, but there is an 8-point gap between the relegation playoff place, Heidenheim there, and Hoffenheim on 30 points, and also St. Pauli on 30 points. St. Pauli, I think, I just don't see them getting pulled down into the relegation fray, not in the current form that they are, not with the confidence that they have, not with the coach that they have right now. Hoffenheim, a German fan can dream, of course. That 8-point gap just seems a little bit too much to overcome. So, love the energy from Kiel. We've talked about what an entertaining team that they've been this year. And also the sprint statistic is I just found that out this weekend as I was watching the game. I was exceedingly impressed by them. Yet again, it was a great match from Skripski. Our boy Dana actually made 2 very excellent saves. But that remaining fixture list, Gladbach, Augsburg, Freiburg, Dortmund, I don't see it happening. The good news is for Kiel, administratively speaking, that they sacked Carsten Wehmann this week. Poor Carsten Wehmann. He got Darmstadt and Kiel promoted and got sacked by both clubs. And they have brought in the FC Nuremberg wizard, Olaf Rebe, who was with the club for 4 years, and just this recent transfer window orchestrated the sales of Jan Kastrop and Simas and all of this stuff. So Rebe is going to be the man tasked with rebuilding Kiel in the second division, and I think he's a competent executive.
Yeah, it was a big disappointment when he left, because obviously he's literally got Nuremberg's coffers well and truly in motion as well. And it was a little bit of a shock when he left shortly after that window. But I guess that sometimes happens with clubs with the kind of in that case, when they've kind of done the business, they look elsewhere for clubs that need to raise funds, basically, don't they? And I guess Kiel, likely to be relegated, they are going to want to try and get some decent profit for some of these actors, aren't they? So we'll have to see. Maybe our boy Shuto Machino will be able to remain as a Bundesliga player, and maybe even Phil Harris, who knows? But I'm a little bit more doubtful on him, to be honest. But yeah, definitely Kiel have given a lot to the Bundesliga this season. They really have. And I'd be sorry to see them go. I think if I could choose one of them to play the playoff out of those three, I would choose Kiel, actually. They're the team out of those three that I've enjoyed the most, really, this season. But yeah, I just want to mention a little bit about Bochum as well, because obviously for them, it not really tipped for relegation this season, were they, after a big kind of summer spending spree with the likes of Sissoko coming in, Boadu, and some pretty highly rated players. But after a good run under Hecking initially, now 5 straight defeats, it does look a little bit bleak for them, doesn't it? And obviously Ibrahima Sissoko sent off as well in pretty disappointing form ahead of next week's tie against Union Berlin, which is relatively winnable, I guess. Yeah, what's gone wrong for Hecking, Peter? Is it just a case of not good enough, or has things kind of run a little bit stale there after a good start?
Well, I mean, Hecking is as we've said so many times, I mean, he's just an old school German trainer. How many times has he thrown Myron Boadu out of the squad and then rehabilitated him and things like that? Now, I mean, also the sort of administrative chaos that we had with Bochum, I don't necessarily think that they could have given Zeidler a little bit more time. I, of course, didn't agree with the sacking of Lech last season either, because so many players like Berhu and Vitek, they came directly from Vitesse. They were sort of building the team around him. So Bochum lost both of their sporting directors. They had 2. They had Mark Lettau and Patrick Fabian. Hecking has brought a lot out of this team. I mean, he well and truly has, considering what he had to work with, which was sort of a ramshackle, odd bunch. I mean, the winter signings have also been good. Masouras has had his moments and so on and so forth. He's brought Gerrit Holtmann back into the squad. This young kid that we were talking about on Thursday, Panavig, I think that he's got potential as well. One player that I don't know why he didn't use more often was Danny De Witt. I think that Danny De Witt, particularly on a higher attacking access, could have made some differences. And should we mention Timo Horn? I don't
know. He's magic. Yeah.
I mean, I think that Hecking's personality, and this as he was in charge of Nuremberg, he can be very, whimsical when it comes to players. And, he can let his emotions and how the players are training and what sort of attitude they're giving him. He's very, very public about that. There's a lot of different, a lot of coaches would sort of keep that in the background, or they'd push it to the side. Hecking is always mentions which players he likes and which players he doesn't like. So, I mean, all things considered, he hasn't done a terrible job. I, like most Germans, are absolutely furious about the Grünen Tisch, the 2 points that they were able to gain bureaucratically. I think that's absolute nonsense. So, I mean, I suppose, and I like Bochum. I like going to Bochum. I like singing Grönemeyer. I went to Bochum this year to go see the Frauennationalmannschaft, the German women's national team. I tend to like having Bochum in the league, but I'm not going to be terribly upset if they get direct relegation, particularly after that bureaucratic move, which I couldn't disagree with more. They could still make the playoffs. It's possible. I mean, I listed the Kiel are only 3 points off that relegation playoff spot, but that remaining fixture list is impossible. I mean, how do they catch up with that when Heidenheim and Bochum have it easier? Whether or not Heidenheim or Bochum contest the playoffs, I don't know. That was, of course, an amazing playoff comeback against Düsseldorf last season. from Bochum. Maybe they could give us that thing again. And I've given up hope that Kaiserslautern are going to make the playoffs.
Nuremberg for that hope, and Nuremberg as well. But yeah, at least we get to do our kind of tradition again next year, don't we? Our 2 games, yeah. But anyway, yeah, just to finish off, I guess there's one more game that we just need to touch on as well. I mean, it probably wasn't the main game of the weekend, but it was another decent watch. Obviously, Mainz falling away quite badly, aren't they? Which is disappointing to see for all Bundesliga fans, because we were all, at one point it really looked likely we would see Mainz in the Champions League, didn't it? It was looking very, very likely. At the moment, it's looking unlikely we'll see them in Europe at all, unfortunately. I mean, what's gone wrong with them? Is it just a case of our boy Johnny B being injured and Viper, the not so potent striker, being his replacement, or what? What's it all about? What's happened to them?
Well, they had, it was a good Burkhardt and was back, and Amiri was there too against Wolfsburg. It was a decent performance from them, very good performance from Jae-Sung Lee. What happened is that Wolfsburg came out ahead with a Maximilian Arnold stunner, and then there was one of these classic Bo Henriksen, Rumpelstiltskin motivational speeches on the sideline, and they scored 2 goals, and they went ahead within 3 minutes to close out the half. And then Wolfsburg pulled back that equalizer, which was a little bit lucky. Vavro would have in the 89th minute. So it was actually unfortunate that they didn't get the 3 points here. But it was still, it was a good game with a lot of talking points. Grabara was very good. The Wolfsburg keeper was. He made several saves towards the end there. When it comes to the race for Europe, I think people are wondering, can Dortmund really get top 4? I think that they can probably leapfrog Mainz and possibly Leipzig after what we saw this weekend. Freiburg's a tougher go, but yeah, I mean, Mainz they've been cooling off for a while. They've been overachieving. The absence of Burkhardt and Amiri for a little while definitely didn't help matters. I can't say any player was particularly bad in this match except for Kachi. Kachi had some heavy legs at times. Achnik was good filling in for Mwene at the wingback position. I mean, it's a shame. I mean, they played a good game, and they might have deserved all 3 points. Hey, guess who's back on?
Oh, Peter, you've cut out there. Hello, Earth to Peter.
Are we back, Mark?
Oh, you're back. Yeah, go on, Peter. Yeah, what were you going to say? Guess who's back?
Yep.
You're back. Yeah. Sorry, yeah, go on. Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry, you're going to say guess who's back? Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin Paredes, the American, wow, made his first Bundesliga appearance this weekend, and it actually influenced Wolfsburg's play quite well. Really, I mean, beyond the Bayern results this weekend, I don't think that there was a game that was particularly boring, and that included the low-scoring affair between Werder and Bochum, which had some excellent monster tackles, particularly Romano Schmid on Ibrahima Sissoko. That was amazing. And the Augsburg-Frankfurt 0-0 was eminently entertaining. I found that to be a very, very entertaining match with plenty of monster tackles from the Fuggerstädter and some great saves from Finn Dahlmann as well.
Yeah, that was up there as one of the best games for me. I really enjoyed that one because it was like a game of 2 halves in some ways, and then the big chance at the end from Tietz. But yeah, the FCA continued to impress. Sometimes even more performance-wise than results. Sometimes they don't get that goal that they kind of deserve. Obviously, last week they were outplayed by Bochum, but won. This week I felt, especially in that first half, they were just dominating Frankfurt, weren't they? And the ball just wouldn't go in for them. And but another great performance from them, and they become a really, really strong team in the second half of the season. Only 1 defeat in 15 for them now. I mean, yeah, we're literally living the dream, really, the 10th place dream for the FCA at the minute. Yeah, this really is as good as it gets. But really, in all seriousness, they are a good team this year, and I think all people in Augsburg are going to be happy. Obviously, Frankfurt well on target for Champions League as well, so credit to them. It's still a good point for them away at the FCA, and they should be well shaped to get that Champions League spot ahead of Dortmund and Freiburg. So yeah, that just about concludes the show for today. So if you enjoyed what you saw, don't forget to check out our Instagram account at @OverTheBarFB. We do kind of, produce a lot of stuff on there. The latest post from the Paderborn Nuremberg game. Myself and Peter will be going to another game as well this weekend. So really looking forward to that. We're not going to drop it just yet, but we might give you a teaser on Thursday potentially as well. So yeah, check out that. Don't forget to check out our Blue Sky and X accounts as well in the same name. And thank you very much to Peter again. And we'll see you again on Thursday for the next prediction show ahead of week 31. So thank you very much, guys. And servus. See you then.